Hello, everyone. I'm Rob here again with MBT Systems. Today, we're talking about vulnerability scanning, pen testing, compliance auditing, what the differences are, and which do you actually need. So a vulnerability scan checks for known vulnerabilities, missing patches, out-of-date software, misconfigurations. These are good for validation of your environment. So if your patches are up to date, these are good for validating your environment to see if your patches are up to date. If you need to meet a baseline, vulnerability scans will catch low-hanging fruit, something that is known but you may have missed. So this is probably one of the most cost-effective ways to do a checkup on your systems, right? So there's not much human interaction. Just start a scan. It'll start building a list of and comparing it to what's known out there for vulnerabilities. What it's good for, what it's not good for, proving that a vulnerability is exploitable, right? So. Um, Even though it finds vulnerability, it doesn't do anything with it. It just tells you that it's there. It doesn't provide you with anything that tells you that you're at risk or any danger. Again, just a list of what's vulnerable in your systems, but doesn't tell you here's how you fix it, or if those vulnerabilities as a collective are bad. Just does a check to tell you what and doesn't tell you what state you're in, right? So it's really just like a checkup, like a blood panel testing where it checks and then tells you what range you fall in, and it's up to you to kind of decide what you want to do. Penetration testing, often called pen testing, this is typically human-led. Nowadays, there are some systems that are automated with AI. What this does is it will validate any kind of vulnerabilities and exploit them, right? It will try to break or break into your systems, and then it will test that you have systems in place that does detection and response because it is trying to kind of see what it can get into your system and exploit your systems. What it's not continuous day-to-day monitoring, right? So it's a one-time effort. You still need to have your day-to-day monitoring detection tools. It's expensive. It's not cost effective. It's expensive because it requires humans to perform the exploiting. So there is some costs related to that. Um, it is not low risk. So if you're looking for something like to happen in the background, it's not going to do that, right? So once it finds a vulnerability, it's going to try to exploit it. So it could cause some disruption to the system. So you got to make sure you're timing this, letting everybody know you're doing this, so that you don't see any alarms go off, and then people start freaking out. So the pen testing will do that. So you got to make sure that these are coordinated efforts and this is that's and we'll cause disruptions, right? So this is kind of like a stress test. We know from the vulnerability scanning or your blood results that you have some vulnerabilities. So now let's stress those to see what we can do and how we can fix those moving forward. So the compliance audit. The compliance audit is not much of a technical test. It's more of a kind of a review, right? It's more of reviewing your policies, your controls, and kind of and collecting evidence that to make sure that you have what you say you have is correctly implemented according to the framework, right? So it's regulatory driven. So if need to meet CMMC or HIPAA compliance, you're going to need a compliance audit, right? So it helps to prove that what you have in place satisfies requirements. What it's not good for, it doesn't protect you from day to day by simply passing compliance, right? It doesn't replace any technical testing or provide any real-time detection. It's simply like a checklist, right? So like a physical exam, you get poked and prodded, but it won't fix you on the same day, right? You get a list of things that you may need to go home and work on to get healthier, and you come back, we're going to test you again. So similar in that fashion. So when to use each of these and how often. So from a vulnerability scanning standpoint, you probably should be performed on a monthly or quarterly basis. patches are released, and then you run your scan to make sure you're still in good standing and good shape. Pen testing, where when you're making changes to your environment or you have a big launch coming up, you should perform a pen testing. Typically, you only need this maybe on an annual basis or as a as needed basis, according to your security policies, or depending on how many major launches that you put in, or if you're making changes to your infrastructure, probably will need to do the same thing here. A compliance audit standpoint, this should perform initially as a one-time audit, and then it should perform as you need it per your framework requirements. So real world scenarios, we talked about healthcare. If you're a healthcare, you have a healthcare practice, you should probably need a compliance audit. And then you, as part of that, it requires vulnerability scanning on the regular basis. Same with your defense contractor. You're pursuing CMMC level 2. You have a one-time audit to make sure you're in compliance, and then you do it per your cycle. And then on a continuing basis, you do vulnerability scanning and continuous monitoring to satisfy those requirements. If you're a SaaS company, you're hosting your applications, storing customer data. You want to ensure that you cannot be exploited. So pen testing will help you kind of simulate that type of testing to make sure no one can break in, no one can steal your data, to help satisfy those requirements. So for a small business, you want to have vulnerability scanning on a regular basis. If you're heading down that compliance standpoint, yeah, you'll need a compliance audit also. But from a small business standpoint, you probably have a limited budget. You don't have a dedicated security team. You want to do these scans on a regular basis to make sure that you're patching correctly and you won't be able to be exploited. So this is a good way to kind of just do a check on your systems, even if you have a limited budget and you don't have any regulatory compliance, does that checking for you for as a small business. I'm Rob Huey with NBT Systems. What organizations will find is you'll need a mix of these, right? What you don't want to pay for, what you don't want to do is pay for a compliance audit if you need a vulnerability scan, right? So reach out to us if you need help deciding. If you want to do a quick test on your external facing host or website, scan the QR code. We'll put your host and domain into a scanning tool, and we'll send you the results for free. So feel free to reach out to me at info@nbtsystems.ai. My website's nbtsystems.ai. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at NBT Cyber. Until next time.